Hello and welcome. In today's presentation, we're going to talk about sentence fragments. Sentence fragments are one of the problems any English learner faces. As a beginning, let's look at the following groups of words and decide which ones form complete sentences. As you notice, sentences 2 and 8 are the only two sentences in these groups. It's very important to remember what a sentence is. By now you know that a sentence is a group of words that has a subject, a verb, and a complete meaning. It starts with a capital letter and ends with an end mark, which is a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. Now the problem is, some students write structures that lack one of these important elements. So a sentence they write could be without a subject, or without a verb, or without a complete meaning, and they treat it as a complete sentence. This is what results in a fragment. One of the main causes of fragments is when students misunderstand the fact that not all verb forms are accepted as verbs in sentences. Now, which of these do you consider a verb? Go, spoke, and place. When these appear in sentences, they can be considered complete verbs. However, the rest, going, spoken, speaking, playing, which are the past participle or the present participle, that is the ing form, they can't be considered verbs unless they are preceded by helping verbs. So one of the problems the students face is that they write speaking only and they consider it a verb, which will result in an incomplete sentence. Other than that, sometimes the ing form is used as the subject of the sentence, and then again, students believe this is a verb. Let's go back to the sentences. Now let's look at the structures that are incomplete sentences. What do we call these? In English, these are referred to as fragments. By definition, a fragment is a sentence that has an incomplete verb. So we can't call it a sentence. It pretends to be a sentence. So the first problem we're going to talk about is groups of words, we can't call them sentences, that have an incomplete verb or no verb at all. Always remember, a sentence fragment tries its best to be a sentence, but it just can't make it. It is missing something. And in this case, it is missing a verb. For example, John working extra hard on his hook shot lately. Now one might believe that working is the verb of the sentence. However, as we said earlier, working by itself can't be considered a verb. It's in the ing form and it needs a helping verb. So to correct this structure and make it a sentence rather than a fragment, we just add a helping verb. And in this case, we can use has been. So John has been working extra hard on his hook shot lately. So again, one type of fragments is a result of a group of words with an incomplete verb or with no verb at all. The second type of fragments is the group of words that has no subject. Again, remember, a fragment tries its best to be a sentence, but it just can't. It's missing something. And here, the subject is missing. For example, spending hours every day after school and even on weekends. Okay, so in this sentence, we don't know who is spending hours. And we can just add a subject here, like John is spending hours every day after school and even on weekends. Or spending hours every day after school and even on weekends, the whole thing as a subject, can lead to success. A third type of fragments is the dependent clause. By now you know that a clause is a group of words that has a subject, a verb. Now, if it has a complete meaning with the subject and the verb, then it is an independent clause because it can stand alone as a sentence. However, sometimes there are structures that give meaning, but that meaning can't stand alone. It needs something. It depends on something else. We call these dependent clauses. Let's see. Again, remember, the fragment can give you a great deal of information, but still it is not a complete sentence. For example, after the coach encouraged him so much last year. This group of words is considered a sentence by the writer, and that's why he started it by a capital letter and ended it with a period. Regardless of the information it gives, still it doesn't make sense alone. How can we correct this structure? For example, we have another group of words that are considered a sentence, but still they can't make it. Before the students came to class. So, how can we correct this? There are two ways actually. We can cross out a word, like before, then the students came to class. Now it is a complete sentence. Or we can just add another complete sentence to which this incomplete sentence can add more meaning and it can depend on. For example, before the students came to class, they lined up in the playground. Now we have a complex sentence which has both a dependent clause and an independent clause. One more type of fragments is the prepositional phrase. By now you know that a prepositional phrase is a structure made of a preposition and its object. Prepositional phrases are very important because they give a lot of information to the sentence. But unfortunately, sometimes writers, student writers especially, fail to recognize that they don't have a subject and a verb, and they consider them sentences. Let's see. So you have to be alert for strings of prepositional phrases that never get around to establishing a subject-verb relationship. For example, immediately after presentations in the schoolyard on Imogene's hand. Okay, so we have here two prepositional phrases after presentations in the schoolyard on Imogene's hand. Even we have 3 prepositional phrases. A lot of information, but still it is not a sentence. How do we correct this? For example, we have another prepositional phrase. On the street opposite to the hospital. Okay, what's going on? We can add a complete sentence to this string of prepositional phrases. On the street opposite to the hospital are very tall pine trees. In other words, there are very tall pine trees on the street opposite to the hospital. Now let's practice. Correct the following sentence fragments. You might choose to pause, do the exercise, and then go to the answers. Here are the answers. As you notice, you might have a variety of ways to change a fragment into a complete sentence. By now, I hope that fragments have become something from the past. Watch out, it's very important to use these correct formats whenever you write, because fragments really make up a lot of the mistakes students make in their writing. And to correct them is a very easy thing that any student can do. So from now on, you need to be avoiding sentence fragments, and hopefully you'll never again have trouble with them.